lies affect the masses. There's no excuse. You've been loosed.
This is From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Each week, Janice shares her wisdom to enlighten, educate, and advance the culture in America today. Janice Pons is a mother, author, and free thinker, and your host for our podcast this evening. Now let's join your host, Janice Pons.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Come on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Janice Pons. I'm the host on our podcast, From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspective, Spiritual Truths. Guys, there's a lot going on, and we talk about how things are going to heat up. Why? Because we've got an election coming up in November. And there's a lot on the line. You all know it is, and it's going to escalate more because there's a lot that's been uncovered in our nation that had never come out before, but it's uncovered now. And we want to continue to support each other. At a minimum, there's our flag behind us. And we want to pray for all of our citizens. And we want to pray for the president. This is what the seal represents him, of course, the presidential seal. He, his family, his cabinet, their families. We want everyone to do well. That's my position. I want all citizens to do well. That's me. That's me. You know, 75% of the nation felt like the country was going in the wrong direction 2 years ago, and now there's a percentage that think like that believe it's going in the wrong direction now. But there are a lot of dynamics and all of the nuances and the dynamics thereof as to why we are going in a certain direction and why certain interventions needed to happen. And so we're going to dissect those things, and we have the leadership that we have. This election in November is going to have a profound impact upon the leadership on Capitol Hill. And then, of course, that takes us into a presidential election in 2028. This year is flying by. And so tonight, we're going to dissect some things. A lot of times people just don't understand facts and all the dynamics and the nuances that are involved. They depend on what the news says. Guys, they're lying, manipulative, controlling forces, no different than what Hitler and his minister of propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, did in terms of tools of persuasion to get us to think a certain way. And they lie. They manipulate. They don't tell us the whole truth. I mean, here's one that's big. This whole thing about what the Supreme Court did regarding gerrymandering. I have heard over and over again, there are our fellow Americans that happen to be Black Americans. Some of them literally believe that President Trump has taken us back to Jim Crow and segregation, and they literally believe that Black people can't vote anymore. You see how asinine that is? No one is stopping anybody that is a citizen of this great nation from voting, but they literally believe that. So that's just an example of listening to the mainstream media and believing what they say. So it's important that we dissect facts, and that's what we do in this community over here. So tonight, regarding facts, we're going to look at something as it relates to our Transportation Security Administration. Guys, a lot of our fellow Americans, they are clueless about our national security. They're driven by emotions and reacting and not responding. If we respond, we're more prone to get informed. But reactions are often connected to emotionality that's not rooted and grounded in facts. And I'm just the opposite. I've learned to calm myself, get facts, and that's what I do over here with our podcast. So we're going to look at something that's very serious in our nation as it relates to our Transportation Security Administration, TSA. We're going to look at the dynamics regarding TSA privatization, our Transportation Security Administration privatization, and our clinical perspective tonight is going to be around the dynamics of the freedom to change. Listen, My fellow Americans and my brothers and sisters, we're living in a time where there are politicians that really don't care about how their decisions affect our day-to-day lives. Us being inconvenienced means absolutely nothing to them. They literally use and abuse us to accomplish agendas. Now, let's frame this for simple understanding. The average American does not understand all the dynamics related to how the Democratic Party has been holding us hostage. Even with this partial shutdown that ended, there's still an unsolved problem, facet of it that relates to our national security. Let's keep going. The main reason why the government was partially shut down and ICE agents showed up at airports to help out was because the Democratic Party wanted their main objective to be ongoing, which is to keep illegal immigration tied up in the courts, guys. That is a driving force. They want to keep it tied up in the courts to be to keep it hanging over our heads. That's it. So the rogue judges have been a driving force behind holding the nation hostage. So that's what's going on with this. And our national security is all on the line, but they don't care because this illegal immigration thrust is at the core of them not wanting to let go of control, and they don't care if we're safe or not. Now, stick with me, I'm going to prove it. Now, here's the deal, guys. They want mandatory judicial warrants, which would require agents to obtain judicial warrants rather than using administrative warrants to enter private property. And we're talking about going in the private property of people who need to leave this country. It's already been proven. They've already gone through the legal dynamics that say they are not supposed to even be here. They are guilty. They have committed crimes, some as serious as homicide and the accosting of people's bodies, so forth and so on. Stick with me. We're going to lay these facts out. Now, but they don't want that. The Democrat Party, they don't want that. Now, mind you, we're talking about ICE agents, I'm telling you guys, you got to frame it, dealing with people with a final order of removal. I repeat, a final order of removal. F-I-N-A-L. Final. Get it? Final. What does that mean, guys? Guys, a final order of removal is a legally binding decision by an immigration judge or the Board of Immigration Appeals, BIA, Board of Immigration Appeals, requiring a non-citizen to leave the United States of America, triggering, you ready? A 90-day period for ICE to execute the removal. Can you see the sinister plot? They want to tie everything up in court to get past this 90-day period. Stick with me. Facts are important. So, essentially, they want to tie up everything in court to keep illegal immigrants here. Guys, it's all about numbers and getting a new voter block. Let me tell you, Black Americans don't realize what's going on, and they're telling us, child, all the black and the brown people, we have to stick together. Guys, they're done with Americans. They are definitely done with Black Americans. They have moved on to a new voter block, illegal immigrants. There's a protection of them from so many angles, from jobs to benefits. Now, I'm going to ask y'all this, and y'all people holler and holler about reparations. Has your health care, your food, your education, a free money card, money to play video games, child daycare, has it been paid for? Has it been paid for? Your money, my money, was paying for that for illegal immigrants. And a lot of them have been loosed and were walking our streets. And that's what President Trump has been getting to the core of, and they've been fighting him tooth and nail. And people want to holler about reparations. We're not getting reparations. We're not going to get them. But they get them, and we've been paying for it. And President Trump is saying, no, we're not doing it anymore. Why? They are here illegally. I remember about immigration. You used to have to get a green card and a sponsor. That was back in the 80s, in the 90s. That thing was set up beautifully. Honey, we've totally gotten away from that. They've hijacked the whole thing. Now, it's a new voter bloc, guys. There are Democrats fighting for illegal immigrants to get reparations right now. Let that sink in. Now, regarding TSA and the dynamics related to Americans traveling, the Trump administration has a push to privatize TSA airport screening. This exposes how Washington's dysfunction repeatedly punishes American travelers, while 20 airports were already using private contractors. They just sailed right through that shutdown chaos, totally unscathed. Let's dissect that. So we just want to get to our destination. That's all we want. And at the same time, we've been like pieces on a chessboard again. Now, here's the deal that they don't want us to know, and that the mainstream media won't tell us. And we're going to talk about these things. You're not going to hear these kinds of things on the mainstream media because they use tools of persuasion to hold us hostage, and they want to dumb us down. But that day is over. We have critical thinkers like me and millions of others, and we get on these podcasts and we get on social media platforms and we talk about it. Now, here's the deal that they won't tell us. All we've heard is that Trump is holding the nation hostage related to the government when it was partially shut down, and that ICE agents were going to bully people in the airports. Remember, Maxine Waters said, I'm going to show up and I'm going to, she said, I'm going to shut their the three-letter A-S, and she said, I'm going to shut their down. That's Maxine. She was hollering. She was going to show up. And she said she was going to protect the citizens from ICE. That's Maxine Waters. Now, here are more details in what has been going on. The White House proposed a $52 million TSA budget cut and privatization following shutdown-induced airport meltdowns. Guys, this partial shutdown, it's been lifted, part of it. But we're going to be right back in the same place in September before this election. It's ridiculous that we're being dealt with as citizens like this. Let's stick with me here. So the White House proposed a $52 million TSA budget cut and privatization following shutdown-induced airport meltdowns, with 10% plus worker absences and 500 plus resignations because the Democrat Party was playing power games. People were being told on the mainstream media that President Trump and the Republicans simply would not fund TSA workers. That's how they presented it. Lies, lies, lies. If their mouth is moving, more than likely it's lies. It's much more involved than that, guys. Let's go there. Airports that were using private screeners under the existing TSA program avoided chaos entirely during the funding crisis, demonstrating a shutdown-proof alternative model. Did you hear about that on the news? Did you? Of course not. Why not? Why didn't they dissect that for us? The proposal mandates small airports adopt private screening while expanding a proven partnership program that reported efficiency gains and lower employee turnover. Labor unions and former TSA officials opposed the plan as a profit-driven threat to security. Now, that's what they said. This is a profit-driven threat to security, though private contractors operated under identical federal standards since 2004. Since 2004. So, guys, since 2004, it's the same guidelines. It's the same standards, whether they were privatized or whether it was under the federal government. You see how they gaslight us? What has happened is that the shutdown crisis exposed federal vulnerability. Some may not remember, but in mid-February of 2019, America's airports were brought to a standstill when the partial government shutdown happened then, and it halted TSA funding. What happened then? It left 50,000 federal screeners working without paychecks, playing these games. Daily absence rates exceeded 10% as unpaid workers called out sick, creating hours-long security lines at major airports nationwide. There were over 500 TSA employees who quit outright during the crisis, compounding staffing shortages that endangered traveler safety and crippled operations. That was in 2019. Now, the dysfunction showcased a fundamental flaw. Federal workers held hostage to Washington budget battles while Americans missed flights and businesses lost revenue. That's what happened. All that was surrounding border protection and a wall to protect the nation. That was the dynamic then. The dynamics that we have been confronted with as of late, is centered around private screeners, proving that we have a shutdown-proof alternative. Did you hear me? There is a shutdown-proof alternative. Now, President Trump, he was like, look, we're getting ICE agents to come in there, and it was beautiful. And the lines went away. And Hakeem Jeffers was on talking about, well, they were going to come in there and end the lives of Americans. And Maxine Waters, they sound foolish. And Maxine Waters said, well, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to kick that part of their bodies. And she was going to go in there and protect Americans' lives. Did they show up? And did anybody get hurt? Or did the ICE agents really get to the core of helping the problem? While federally staffed airports descended into chaos, roughly 20 facilities operating under TSA's screening partnership program maintained business as usual throughout the shutdown in 2026. San Francisco International was one, Kansas City International, and Orlando Sanford airports employed private contractors like VMD Corporation and BOS Security under TSA oversight. They operate under the same standards, guys, using pre-funded contracts immune to appropriations standoffs. Spokespersons from these airports reported stable workforces because private screeners continued receiving paychecks, avoiding the mass absences plaguing federal sites. Aviation expert Daniel Bubb from UNLV noted the private model demonstrated efficiency gains and reduced employee turnover compared to direct federal employment. Wow, this is good to know. Budget proposal mandates expansion have come forth despite union opposition. The White House budget unveiled on the heels of the crisis proposed cutting $52 million from TSA operations while requiring small airports to transition to private screeners funded by TSA. The plan bills aiming to insulate We're talking about solution-focused problem solving here. And they want to paint President Trump like some dumb buffoon that doesn't know what he's doing. And it's all based on what they present to us. The lying, manipulative, deceptive mainstream media, which is an extension of the agenda of the Democrat Party. Prove me wrong. The plan bills aiming to insulate screening operations from future shutdown disruptions and address previous audit failures that flagged intrusive procedures and privacy violations. Former TSA Administrator John Pistole countered that security remains inherently governmental, warning privatization prioritizes contractor profits over passenger safety. They always got to throw that little monkey wrench in there. Now, let's keep going. Facts. These are facts. They don't tell you on the news. It affects us. This affects we the people. We just want to get on a plane and get to where we need to get without all the lines and the chaos. The American Federation of Government Employees echoed concerns that cost-cutting undermines worker protections and accountability, though private screeners operate under identical federal standards and TSA supervision as their government counterparts. Guys, things like this have political fallout and broader implications. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis amplified the debate by suggesting complete TSA replacement with private security following the shutdown fiasco, while Elon Musk controversially offered to pay TSA salaries directly, raising legal questions, of course, about private intervention in federal operations. Well, the proposal reflects broader conservative frustration with bloated federal bureaucracies vulnerable to political gamemanship. They play games with us. We're like chess pieces on a game, yet also highlights tensions within limited government principles when privatization contracts still require taxpayer funding and federal oversight. Travelers face immediate relief prospects if expansion proceeds, but long-term implications hinge on whether cost savings materialize without compromising the security infrastructure established after 9/11, September 11th, 2001. Security. We're talking about national security. And when they just had all the chaos going on, they were able to peg people that they weren't supposed to get through, guys. It's a mess. When they just run willy-nilly, they jeopardize our national security. And ICE not being funded jeopardizes our national security. And although that partial shutdown is over, ICE is still not funded because of the Democrat Party. Let me go on. The aviation industry watches closely as Congress weighs whether to approve a precedent-setting shift in how America secures 440 commercial airports against evolving threats. Absence rates dropped to 8.6% once back pay resumed. Yet the staffing crisis persists with controller shortages and unresolved questions about whether privatization truly serves taxpayers or merely transfers cost while creating new accountability gaps. The debate continues, guys, and we're going to be in the same spot in September. Here we go. The debate continues as small airports await mandates and get direction, and larger hubs evaluate whether opting into screening partnership programs, SPP, screening partnership programs, offers protection against the next inevitable Washington budget showdown that leaves Americans stranded at security checkpoints. That's our reality. Now, private companies were able to avoid the large-scale absences some airports that use TSA staff were struggling with as their employees went unpaid during the partial government shutdown. It has been surmised that the 20 airports are completely oblivious to the government shutdown. That was noted by a gentleman named Sheldon Jacobson, a founder, professor of computer science at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, who analyzes data to improve aviation security. We need people looking at these things. All operations at the privatized airports are normal because we continue paying our employees during the shutdown, said Nate Carmack of BOS Security. He's over that. He said nobody didn't get paid. The privatization process worked beautifully. They screened passengers at Tupelo Regional Airport in Mississippi. Their employees have never missed a paycheck during any of the government fiascos and shutdowns. Trump proposed slashing $247 million in funding for TSA screening and reducing the number of TSA officers, consistent with his goal to reduce wasteful government spending and abuse of government programs. There's been so much fraudulent scams and money laundering fronts and waste. That budget blueprint claimed that TSA consistently failed audits. All of a sudden, things were being audited. Programs and agencies were being audited. This is how we found out and got deep into the fraudulent scams and money laundering fronts, and it was off the charts in Minneapolis, Minnesota. They failed audits, implemented intrusive screening measures, and allowed illegal migrants to fly into the interior without even having proper documentation. That was a part of how they got in. How were 10,000 coming in one day? There are people just coming in droves from Haiti. Remember, you can't forget, we were parole. They had this little program, this little parole program, that they were coming out of Haiti, Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. Coming on in. The proposed budget for the 2027 fiscal year argues that private security is cheaper than having government employees do the work. The airports that already use this program have demonstrated savings compared to federal screening operations. The budget document says that the move would yield cost savings compared to federal screening and begin reform of a troubled federal agency. Guys, so many of them were troubled. And heretofore, under the Obama, Biden, Harris cabal, they knew what was going on, and they were just letting it go on. Chaos and all. Unchecked, unaudited, it was a mess. So there was a 920-page project, 2025, also calls for privatizing TSA screening by expanding the screening partnership program to all airports, or by shifting screening operations to a new government corporation that contracts with private companies. Guys, that's being efficient. That's being efficient and doing what's best. The document estimates that the government would save 15 to 20%. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We need politicians to be able to change, especially when it comes to our safety. Now, when we're talking about changing, we're talking about the freedom to change. That's our clinical perspective. Let's look at that quickly. I prefer a politician who, upon gaining new information or learning that he or she is wrong, will make a change and be willing to publicly say so as we navigate today's heightened social and political tensions and continue to strive for a more effective government. Changing for the overall good of the nation should be the first and foremost, and our safety. The relationship between the freedom to change and safety is a complex, often interdependent balance rather than a strict dichotomy. While safety is frequently used to justify limitations on freedom, such as security screenings or pandemic mandates, true safety often requires the freedom to innovate, adapt, be innovative, to adapt and act responsibly. Now, freedom, let's think about this. Freedom is a component of safety. Then there's adaptability. A secure society is not a locked box, but it's a living, adaptable system requiring the freedom to change in order to keep people safe in a dynamic world. Freedom to change involves reframing safety. Safety can be viewed not as restriction like rules and red tape, but as the freedom to live fully in the future. Why? Because one is safe today. Guys, we have to have leadership that keeps our safety first and foremost. This is why people were tripped out when we saw 10,000 illegal immigrants fully being brought into our nation, just down there in Texas, just coming across the border. Freedom to change. Just stop that nonsense. And President Trump did. We've gone 11 straight months. It's going into 1 year where no one has crossed that border with people coming into our nation, being let loose into our nation. Freedom to change. Freedom to change involves interdependence. That is a state of mutual reliance between people, systems, or entities where each depends on the other for support, function, or growth. Freedom needs safety to be exercised, and safety needs the freedom to innovate and build systems of protection. Guys, do you think this is important? There's risk involved if we don't protect our safety. When considering the freedom to change, is there a dynamic of the role of responsibility? Is there a need for the role of responsibility? In essence, freedom is not just something to defend, but a principle that, when exercised responsibly, creates a more resilient and truly safe environment. Guys, what have we looked at tonight? TSA privatization. Is that the best route to go for our country? As I've laid out these facts, maybe it is. Just maybe it is. And our clinical perspective is about freedom to change. I've said it once, I've said it again. We're going somewhere, and it's expecting us when we get there. Guys, they want to run around acting like, presenting this thing like the Trump administration is some lost, buffoonish entity that doesn't know what they're doing. They are, one thing about this administration, they have kept our safety first and foremost, and I appreciate it. Guys, we're going to keep dissecting these things because we are going together from destruction to dignity, clinical perspectives, spiritual truths. The clinical perspectives of strategies, skills, tools, a different way of thinking, a consideration of things that maybe we need to do differently. And what I've laid out tonight has to do with our national security and our security. I fly a lot and you fly a lot, and we need to be able to depend that we can get there safely. And these dynamics are part of the whole flow and system that we need our leadership and our politicians to pay attention to, and not use us as chess pieces on a board to accomplish some agenda like illegal immigrants being brought in here so they'll have a voter base. That's what's been going on with the Democrat Party. But that dog won't hunt anymore because it's been uncovered. Guys, we're going to keep dissecting this. I will see you all next week. And remember, we're one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, as we form a more perfect union, which means us flowing together as one. I will see you next week. Good night.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Janice's mission is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention when needed. As a reminder, this show is not therapy, but for educational purposes only. For more information, check out JanicePons.com or follow her on social media.
We are one power, strength is ours, liberty, been set free, education, affirmation, dedication, information, revelation.